Monday, November 25th meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gringo.
Present.
Mr. Friebel. Dr. Pecchia.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
Mrs. Stover.
Here.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
7 members present, 1 absent.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Jean is here to introduce 2 students from Saladaysburg Elementary.
Good evening. It gives me great pleasure to introduce 2 students from Saladaysburg Elementary School, first grade, in Mrs. Robinson's class, and Elizabeth Apkerson and Messiah Bilby. And may you come on up. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a couple of certificates and pins here. Elizabeth. There you go. There's a flag pin for you as well. That is for you. And the side, we have one for you as well. We appreciate you guys coming. Can we give them a big hand?
The next item on the agenda will actually be President's Report, which is Section 2A, and that's to recognize our state semifinalist football team. We have some certificates, I think, that we're going to award them this evening, and then they have to go to practice.
Which is actually good news, right? Because that means the season's not over yet. So I'm going to have Serena, the athletic director, come up as well. Serena Henry.
Do you want the video first? From Coach?
Oh, we have a video from Coach.
Coach couldn't make it tonight because he has parent conferences because he doesn't work in our school district. So he sent a video, and you're on, sir.
Hello, this is Coach Gravish with Jersey Shore Bulldog Football. Hey, just so thankful for all the support that we've received this year, especially from our school administration, both the school board and principals, both at Jersey Shore Area High School and here at the middle school. And we're just so thankful for all the cooperation and support that we've received throughout the entire community. We've had tremendous support from our booster club, from our teachers at the high school, with the Jersey Shore High School band and cheerleaders. Our teachers have been very, they've said many great things to our players and supportive. To come back last week after a victory, for our first state playoff victory, to experience the support that we received with all the welcomers back into the town and the fire companies. Words can't describe just what an experience that was. It's just unbelievable. My hat's off to our players. They deserve all the credit. They just do a fantastic job. And, you have to give them a lot of credit. They do everything we ask. And it's no surprise to me that they won back-to-back PHAC Conference football championships. And in addition to that, they were the Quad A District 4 champions for a second consecutive season. Our goal has been for the entire year to get to a point where we could win a state playoff game. We did that last week against Bishop Shanahan. And I just got to thank everybody involved, from the administration to our assistant coaches, to our middle school programs, to Jackie, who does a great job with our training and getting our athletes out on the football field, to the band, to the cheerleaders, to our whole community, our booster clubs, and we wouldn't have the success if it wasn't for our youth football programs as well. So we just want to thank everybody out there, and go Bulldogs. It's a great day to be a Bulldog.
That was filmed last Thursday before we had the excitement on Friday.
All right, when I announce your guys' names, if you would come up, and Serena's going to hand you your certificate as well. All right, so Cameron Allison. Good job, Cameron. Tell you how old I'm getting. I used to coach Cameron's dad in soccer. Owen Anderson. Job on. Owen Bloom. Zane Bubb, who is not here. Connor Davis. Rocking a better beard than I am. Dalton Dugan. Not Dalton. Thank you. Cameron Embick. He's not here either. Hunter Francis. Yep. Caden Green. Brett Guthrie. Brett. Caden Hess. Good job, Caden. Seth Ingram. Ingram, sorry. Seth. Aiden, is it Keisner or Keisner? All right. Well, we still want to get his name right, right? I mean, Ryan Kirshner. No. Tanner Lorson. Okay. Joe Lorson. Josh Malicki. Kobe McKibben. Dylan Miller. How Dylan? Gabe Packer. Okay. It's a little smaller than the sidelines, guys, sorry. Hayden Packer. Cooper Peacock. Good job. Brother Carter Peacock. Carter. Colin Samar. Oh, the stories I could tell. Dawson Seacrest. Good job, Dawson. Thank you. Anthony Schaefer. Job, Anthony. Jonathan Smith. Caden Smith. Okay. Lee Springman. Donald Steinbacher. Terrence Stetz. Trevor Vandrup. Cade Buakola. Tyler Walker. David Watts. Not David. Stanton Westland. How you healing up? Yeah. Brandon Wary. Gage Wilson. Eddie Woodring. Preston Wolf. All right, since Eddie did that, I'm gonna have to tell a story. A lot of these guys I know, even all the way back into kindergarten, when they were, well, whether it be at Saldingsburg or if they were a little older at JSC. But when I got to the middle school, I was told there was a particular table I had to be mindful of. And at least half of these guys had to be at that table. But I got to know them, and I tell you, this is a great bunch of guys. They really are. Squirrely at times? Absolutely. A great bunch of guys. Congratulations on being District 4 champs. We look forward to watching you on Friday. And know you'll do your very best and have made us proud already, and will continue to do so. So thank you. We have coaches, I believe, in the back. Serena, you want to introduce the coaches that are back there?
Coach Jackson. Coach Alex Jackson. Coach Philby. Coach Hess. Coach Williamson. I'm still learning.
We appreciate all the work you've done. Based on the story I just told, for what you've had to put up with, I'm sure, throughout the year. Good job, guys.
Let's go practice. Let's go practice. Thank you.
Nice to see you, sir.
I'll see you, huh?
I'll see you around.
You guys gotta win. Gotta win, one more.
No, I stop at one. Let's win two. See you Friday, guys.
Craig, just a comment on the game is at 6, right? It's already
6
on
o'clock
Friday.
at Danville, Friday night.
And you can still get tickets at the school tomorrow.
Yes. We have tickets left?
Oh, yeah, I sold 180 today, so they'll be at the high school tomorrow from 8 to 8.
Okay, we'll move on to minutes. We have the minutes of the November 25th regular meeting. I'm sorry, minutes of the October 14th regular meeting, the October 17th special meeting, and the October 28th regular meeting. The motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report, October 2019 Treasurer's report, and October 2019 investment report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Approval of bills totaling $3,415,468.85.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, presentations, we're going to communications. Mr. Davey, Dr. Davey.
We do have the October Employee of the Month here that we'd like to recognize, so if everyone would help me congratulate Elaine Rao of Jersey Shore Elementary. She's one of our special education teachers. She was elected the October Employee of the Month. So if she could come up here, I know she does a fabulous job up there with our kids. She primarily works with our primary students up there. So we want people to continue to nominate people for the Employee of the Month, but for this month, help me congratulate Elaine Rao. Elaine, you were supposed to give a speech. I'm just kidding. You're welcome.
Hi, Mrs. Free.
And that is that.
Okay, we'll turn back to the president's report. And at this time, as most people were, we have a vacancy on the board due to resignation of Mrs. Wasson. It will be for the remainder of her 4-year term, so approximately 2 years remaining. And I see Mrs. Beerley's here. I don't see the other applicant that had applied or sent the letter of interest in. So Mrs. Beerley, if you want to come up to the microphone. Just some basic information about the board. There's 9 elected and voting members, plus the superintendent is a team of 10. The board develops policy and establishes district goals. The superintendent directs operational activities and district employees within policies and approval of the board. There are generally 2 regular meetings scheduled each month, with 1 scheduled meeting in July and December, other meetings as needed. The board adopts revenue expense budget, fixed expenses, which are about 85% of all costs and 70% are salaries and benefits. And then variable expenses, which only amount to roughly 15% of all costs. The board votes to levy taxes, local taxes, approve contracts. Board has committee assignments, and occasionally we have hearings for disciplinary action on the students primarily. I want to welcome Mrs. Beerley to the interview process and to filling the unexpected vacancy. We're going to have, originally when we had a couple applicants, we were going to alternate questions, but we don't have to do that now. And we'll hopefully finish your answer within 1 minute of after the board finishes their question. So your 1 minute won't start until after we finish the question. And 5 affirmative votes are required for appointment. We'll start with Mrs. Thomas.
Please tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Ray Beerley. I was born in Jersey Shore. I lived in Jersey Shore. I went to school in Jersey Shore. I graduated from Jersey Shore. I've been a Bulldog all my life. I am married. Married the football quarterback. Also a Bulldog all his life. And we have 3 children. All 3 of these children went through the Jersey Shore area schools, received an exemplary education, were able to go on to college, where they graduated with degrees, obtained full-time employment in their fields, and are just a good example of the product, I guess, our school system produces. I went to Homecoming College. I was a medical technologist at Divine Providence Hospital for nearly 14 years. When I answered the call that I got in 2nd grade to become a teacher, I had always wanted to be a teacher, but when I was graduating from high school, there weren't very many jobs in this area, and this was the only place that I wanted to teach. I didn't want to teach anywhere else but in the Jersey Shore School District, and after 14 years in the hospital, I went back to college, got my degree in education, subbed for 2 years, and then fulfilled, I guess, what you would call a lifelong dream, and got a job in the Jersey Shore Area School District, where I was employed for 26 years, 26 of the best years of my life, working with amazing students, incredible teachers, supportive administration, and a district that just knew that education was vital and was doing everything that it could do to make sure every child was educated in our school district. I'm retired now. I wasn't planning on making this move, but when it came up, I thought, I think I'm ready. I have the time, I have the experience, and I think I have a few good ideas that I would like to share going forward, and a really good group of people on the board to work with. I don't know if that's a minute, but that's close enough, I guess. We have 4 goats.
Sometimes minutes are a long time, and other times 3 minutes isn't long enough.
I have 4 pygmy goats. They call me the goat lady at school, or they do.
Okay, Dr. Pecky, the next question.
So what are your main reasons for applying for the position, and why do you want to serve on the school board of directors?
I don't know if you received a copy of my cover letter with my resume, but in it I stated that I believe that the local school board, the members of the local school board, serve in the most important political position in this country today. Because it's the work of a school board that determines how the next generation and every succeeding generation will be educated. And in my mind, determines the future not only of every student, not only of our school district, but of our town, our state, our country, and to some extent, because we live in a global society, to the world. I also think that public schools are what have made this country great. A free public education for every child, no matter their station in life, has allowed us to produce the great achievements that this country is known for, and a society that many people seek to become members of. So, to me, it would be a tremendous honor to be able to serve on this board, a huge responsibility to serve in this board, on this board, but something that I think I can make a positive contribution to if given the opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Fravel's going to ask the next question, but
He's invisible.
I'll pitch it for him. Do you serve on any other boards or have any commitments that might conflict with a position on this board, such as attending regular meetings on the second and fourth Mondays?
At this time, I do not. I babysit my granddaughters during the school day, but after this year, I'll only be doing that 1 day a week, and I'll be footloose and fancy-free and ready to be here whenever you need me.
Mrs. Stemler.
You will often hear the words, provide a thorough and efficient education. What does this mean to you?
I look at education as, you know, we talk about special ed students and the fact that they have IEPs, their programs designed to fit their needs. I believe as educators, we seek to do that for every child, to get to know these children, to know their strengths, their weaknesses, their needs, their wants, and to try to tailor our education within our curriculum to meet the needs of each student to the best of our ability. Now, does that mean that we're successful with every child? Unfortunately, I know from my experience that I didn't reach every kid. One of the reasons is public education is designed to meet the bell-shaped curve. We meet the needs of the majority of our students. We do an excellent job with those, but then there are those outliers. those, and I don't wanna call them square pegs because they're not square, they just don't fit the round hole that we have structured our curriculum to meet. And that's why, at different times at these meetings, I've been a proponent of bringing back our alternative ed program, expanding our vocational ed program, expanding curriculum offerings as we can within the restrictions that we have as far as staff and buildings. But to do an even better job of meeting the needs of every kid so that those outliers, while they're all unique, still can find a home in our school system where they can be successful.
Thank you.
Mr. Brumberg.
We have a duty to support the educational system, including the students, the staff, the parents, and community members. We also have a duty to represent taxpayers and other constituents in a manner that demonstrates good stewardship of tax dollars. Describe how you would balance these obligations.
As you know, I've spoken on several occasions, many occasions, about where I see our school district and what I would hope that we would be able to do with our school district, but it is limited by funding. And unfortunately, we're a rural school district. We don't have a lot of industry in our school district, and we're heavily dependent on property taxes and the revenue that we generate from property taxes. I am not opposed to raising taxes if necessary. However, I'm also interested in becoming a bit more proactive when it comes to funding opportunities. I think there are things that we can look at, outreach programs through alumni, through philanthropy to support, much like colleges and universities do to attract additional funding. I fully support charter funding reform. It is a huge drain on school district budgets. And at the same time, working at the state level to address this, I would also like to see us become more engaged with our cyber charter school families. To meet regularly with those, to find out what it is that we're not doing that they need. What we could do within our school system to address their needs, to perhaps bring them back into our family, the Jersey Shore family. I think that's an area that we've been a little lax on, and to be perfectly honest, as a classroom teacher, sometimes I was not aware that kids were even thinking of leaving until they brought me their withdrawal papers. So I would like to also see more engagement among the faculty and staff to work with these children before they leave, to keep them in our district. Not just to keep the money here, but I also think we provide a heck of an education for these kids, and they would be missing out, I think, if they leave and we don't do our best to keep them in our classrooms. I would also like to see that we become more aggressive on funding at the state and federal level, that we unite with our fellow school districts across the state, and also with the teachers' unions across the state, to become a pretty powerful force demanding that the state and federal government address their failure to fully fund education at the level that it should be funded. Through social media, I think we can become a powerful force as a group united across the state of Pennsylvania.
And Mr. Schweitzer?
Oh, it's my turn. What educational programs or operational areas do you believe are the strengths of the Jersey Shore Area School District?
Well, I may be biased because I worked in the system for 26 years, but I think we have a very diversified program of education that, as I said earlier, we do miss a few, but I think there are ways to easily remedy that. But when you look at the liberal arts education that we provide, when you look at the vocational educations that we provide, when you look at the opportunities in AP courses, in Penn College Now courses that we provide that allow students to earn college credits at little or no cost to their families, the diversity of our programs is incredible, I think, for a small rural school district. We have an extremely dedicated group of administrators and faculty that work very, very hard developing their curriculum and constantly fine-tuning that curriculum to meet the needs of the students and the needs of a global community in the 21st century. It's a tough job, but I think we do an excellent job. I look at our athletics offerings, our extracurricular offerings, the programs that we offer in the arts are all really substantial, well-founded programs that we provide for our students. One of the things that I would like to see developed as a former medical technologist working in a hospital, I know Mr. Keegan and I have talked about this, and this is the development of a health services program, a vocational program. This is an area that's only going to continue to grow, provides quality, high-paying jobs for our students, and I think with the availability of the local hospitals, and because I taught anatomy and physiology, I know there's a huge interest in our student body in those programs, and I think that's something that would be beneficial to our kids as well.
Okay, Mrs. Stover.
What educational programs or operational areas do you believe are opportunities for improvement at the Jersey Shore Area School District?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I was very sad to see end was our alternative ed program. It was small, but it was growing and it was making a difference. I knew a lot of the kids that had been moved into that program, and they were at-risk kids. They were kids that you worried we're gonna leave. They either were gonna quit school, they were gonna go to cyber school, and they weren't going to benefit from the education that we could provide for them, particularly in our alternative program. And I would really like to see us bring back a robust alternative education program, and this not only for our own students, but possibly to attract students from neighboring school districts into our program, which would be another way to increase revenues. It's a way to, again, address those outliers and bring them full-fledged into our family of successful graduates. I also mentioned, the expansion into a health services program. Other areas, like I said, I'm biased. I think we have a really good program. I will say, as a teacher, I carry a pretty heavy load. Teachers teach a lot of periods a day. Most teachers, I believe now, are teaching close to 7 class periods a day with just their lunch and prep left. It's a heavy load for people. It's hard to get everything done that you need to get done. People do a fabulous job, I think, making that happen. I would like to see us maybe reduce that load just a little bit to help them be able to breathe every once in a while, and maybe once, get to the bathroom. Sometimes you don't end up going to the bathroom till 3:30 in the afternoon. It's like, oh, well, I should have done that a whole lot sooner. But you just continue around your classroom and make a whole trip.
Okay, do you have any questions for us?
Not really. I've been coming to these meetings for about 10 years now. I've become a little bit familiar with the process and the procedures, and hopefully haven't been too annoying in that period of time. But I would hope that, should I, be given the opportunity to serve, that I can do a good job. And I promise you that I will do my best to always be professional, respectful of my colleagues, of the people that attend these meetings, transparent in my offerings, rational in my thinking. I'm data-driven. I'm a science teacher. I was a medical technologist. I work with the data. I look at the data, I draw conclusions from the data, and I don't try to make decisions based on emotions or personal feelings, but we just look at the numbers, crunch the numbers, look at the information, make sure it's good information, and then make the decision that's in the best interest of the people that are involved in that.
Thank you for your time and willingness to serve
Thank you.
as a board member.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Enders, could you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Berger,
No.
Dr. Pecchio,
No.
Mrs. Stemler,
No.
Mrs. Stover,
No.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. We'll have to discuss how to move forward with additional interviews or processes. Just in case there's anybody out there from Region 3 that would like to be considered. You want to speak up?
I do have a question. We have a 30-day legal turnaround to fill this position, is that correct? So what is the deadline?
September 11th, basically. Or December 11th.
December.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next section of the agenda, the intermediate report. Mrs. Wasson was the intermediate representative, and she's the position that is vacant, so we have no report there. Student representative report.
Yeah, so this is gonna be brief. I wasn't planning on doing anything, but given the situation that happened last Friday, I just wanna say that I know myself and the rest of the student body is proud of the community, the police department, and the staff of Jersey Shore Area School District. They all handled the situation very well, and it allowed for all of our students to be safe. It was handled quickly and thoroughly despite all of the unknowns, so to everyone involved, thank you so much. I know it was a hard situation that was unpredicted, but it was handled amazingly. And I was looking through the Jersey Shore Facebook page, and there's just amazing comments despite everything that happened. So just thank you to everybody involved.
Thank you to your student body as well for everything you did to make it a thorough and efficient process. Superintendent's report.
Do have a few things before we get to the new high school elective courses. We do have some plaques here, These are for our board members that are going off the board. And in order to recognize and thank them for the service they've given to the district, the first one is for Mr. Frabel, who's not here, so we'll make sure he gets his, but he served from 2008 to 2010, as well as 2015, and then from 2016 to 19. So maybe we can draw him back, because it sounds like we're able to at times. And Dr. Pecchia, for his service the last couple years as well. Thank you. For Karen, who has served from 2012 to 2019. Thank you, Karen. And for the Colonel, Colonel Schweitzer, from 2016 to 2019.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. So if you would join me in showing our appreciation to them. I will say as well, in regards to what was mentioned earlier, even though I was in Florida, I heard wonderful things about how Friday's event was handled. I think it did benefit us that we had actually our Alice drill about a month or so before that, because that allowed us, from my understanding, to clean up some of our parent reunification stuff that we wanted to make function better, and I heard it went extremely well, Mr. King. So again, thank you to the students and to the staff for the wonderful job they did in handling that situation. So Mr. King has a presentation on the new, or a discussion on the new high school elective courses.
Good evening, Board, and thank you. I just want to present to you for review.
Are you using the screen?
Actually,
Okay,
good. I'm not going to use the screen this time.
Thank you.
Going basic tonight. Just two new classes I'd like to present for your review, and I'll tell you the reason why we're looking at this. We're looking at the semester 2 schedule for the students, and obviously we are concerned with credits and students receiving enough credits, and we're looking for holes that we can fix. I would rather students be in a class earning some sort of credit as opposed to sitting in a study hall. Idle hands, so to speak. I'm not a fan. So with that, looking just briefly at a couple schedules that we've, as we're reviewing this, two classes kind of popped up that we're investigating. We asked the teachers to see if they would be willing to teach any of these courses. These are two classes that were presented. If we can get enough students for this, we'd be willing to do this. So the first class is Introduction to Statistics class. Both courses are electives, not core courses. Now this would be offered as a half-credit course for 11th and 12th graders, students who are interested or maybe possibly going to a college or two-year program that want to get some taste or a little bit of background on statistics without taking the full-blown statistics course. So that would be a half credit for them, grades 11 and 12. The other program is a guitar class, kind of open our music program up a little bit and provide a program that would allow students to expand beyond the traditional band instruments. There seems to be a fairly high interest in this with the students already. One of the concerns I had was, where do we get guitars? So we put kind of a disclaimer on this as a pilot class. Students who already own a guitar obviously would have the first opportunity, and we already have quite a few students that are interested. We are looking at options for donations for guitars, as well as maybe some grants, something like that, to help students out. If we have a student that needs a guitar, I'm sure we'll figure it out. So there are the two courses right away that we're looking at. The second semester starts at the end of January, so I wanted to get these on the board right away, so if we can get some agreement to this, to move forward, so we can get it in the course catalogs and get some students entered into this program. There may be additional ones as we see a need, just so we can get some credits for the students.
Do you know who would be teaching these classes?
Michelle Persona would be teaching the Introduction to Statistics course. Chris Lauder would be teaching the guitar class.
Are you looking at just one class or do a potential, like the current class, to have more than one?
The guitar class could possibly have more than one if we have enough student interest. And we have options with that class, so that would work. The statistics class would have to be just one class period. Both of these courses are opposite of a semester course now, but those students are going to a study hall. So we want to get something in place.
How will this affect the schedule for the teacher? Will this overload them? In other words, you're going from a semester to this course, I don't want to say it, is that teacher going to have an extra free period that time, or is it going to, well, they're going to have 7, 8 classes, or how will that work?
Just in both of these situations, they're already currently teaching a class this semester, and the following semester, semester 2, those would be study halls.
They would be proctored in a study hall.
Right. So I'd rather than proctor a class and the students have the opportunity to earn credit.
You're not going to have all those students in that study hall in this class, though. So you more or less
Probably.
you have a couple of teachers proctoring the study hall.
Yes, yes. We'll have to do room to it. Yep. We'll make sure that it evens.
There's more than one study hall during
Yes,
that period,
more than one
so
study.
that anyone that wasn't in these classes would be dispersed in the other study halls.
Correct.
How many students would be accommodated by each of these classes?
Well, the guitar class probably 15, 16, like traditionally.
But not all in the same period, right?
No, not. Yeah. Well, the guitar class would be 15 or 16 students in one period.
Okay.
Statistics, I would assume at least that, if not, I mean, I'm looking at a traditional class of 18, 20, 24 students in these. And again, I would rather have those students in a class
And
than sitting at a study
the
hall.
teachers are supportive,
Yeah, we asked the teachers before we even,
they're buying in it.
these were the options that they gave. Actually, we put it out there, would any of the study hall teachers would like to teach a class, give us an idea, and we'll present it to the board and see if we can get it together. And these are the two that came up.
I support both. Just, is there a cost involved at all with the math? We need to get stats books.
She's going to use the stats book she already has. Just going to slow it down a little bit and
Okay.
do more of a general stats program. So at this point in time, I don't see a great cost.
Any other questions for Mr. King?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well,
We have we also have Joe O'Neill from Baker Tilly and et cetera to do the end of year audit report. Do you have a presentation?
I do have a presentation, it looks like they copied it up there for me, so good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, I don't have anything quite as exciting as the football team's win, but we'll talk about the audit a little bit. It's certainly an important part of the school district's operations and the financial health of the school district, so we'll try to make this brief and make it informative for the board. I'm certainly happy to take questions during the presentation or at the conclusion of the presentation. I'm Joe O'Neill, I'm the senior manager with Baker Tilly. I've been with the firm for about 15 years. I think pretty much everyone here has seen me at these meetings in the past. I've done this presentation several times. John Compton is still the partner on this engagement. John unfortunately is on vacation this week, so I am here to make our presentation. Just before I jump into it, I would like to recognize and thank management for their part of the audit. These audits are not getting any easier. If you look at your audit report, I think it's about a 70-page report. Certainly, generally accepted accounting principles are not getting any less complex. There continues to be additional standards and additional disclosures and information that we need as part of the audit. We're actually on site for several weeks with a team of auditors here at the district to do this, so there's a lot of hours that goes into this. Not only on our part, but on management's part. It's one additional activity on top of their day-to-day activities, so I'd like to thank Ben Enders and his staff for the cooperation that we received throughout the audit process. Just a summary, and just I'll preface this by saying that this presentation isn't meant to be any kind of straight one-for-one follow-through with the financial statement document itself. This is meant to be more of an executive summary, so kind of, if I were sitting in your chair as a member of the board, what I'd want to know about the school district, the audit, financial health of the school district. But just some top-level executive summary items here. What we're doing for the school district is known as a single audit. What a single audit is, it's a dual-purpose audit in that we're giving two opinions. One opinion on the financial statements themselves, so that is the numbers presented in the financial statements. And also an opinion on compliance related to the district's federal award programs. Those would be your Title I, your National School Lunch, IDEA programs. We had no findings related to the federal programs for the year, so that's a positive. Your general fund experienced a good year. For fiscal 2019, you had an increase in your fund balance of about $1.1 million for fiscal year 2019. Just some required communications, and I'll go through these quickly, but what our objective is as independent auditors would be to express an opinion on your financial statements and on compliance. Our audit procedures were designed to gain reasonable, not absolute assurance, and I'll say that these are the same objectives that any independent CPA firm would provide as part of the audit. So we don't audit every single transaction. There's no way that we could look at every single receipt, every single disbursement, so we're doing what's known as a risk-based audit. We're looking at the dollars in your financial statements and scoping your audit based upon the dollars and the risk that we see in the financial statements themselves. And we're getting to a point where we feel that we can give reasonable assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented. We don't give an opinion on internal controls. That would be something that wouldn't be required for a local government. That would be something that would be more of a public company requirement. Accounting estimates, any set of financial statements that's put together in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's estimates inherent in those financial statements. Some of the more significant estimates would be taxes receivable and the related allowance for taxes receivable. Other post-employment benefits, that's that ongoing healthcare benefit that you provide to your retirees, the teachers and administrators that retire from the school district. Your net pension liability, that's probably the single largest number on your financial statements. The school district participates in the PEASERS plan, that's a multi-employer defined benefit pension plan that every school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania participates in. Your net pension liability was about $56 million, I believe, at June 30th, 2019. That's a number that's actuarially determined and by far the largest number on your financial statements. Compensated absences, estimated useful lives of property and equipment would be a couple of other estimates in your financial statements. As far as audit adjustments, if we were to have identified any significant audit adjustments as a result of our audit procedures, we'd be required to bring those to the attention of the board. We didn't identify any significant journal entries, so that certainly signifies that internal bookkeeping is solid here at the district. Nothing to report disagreements with management, no consultations with other accountants, that would be known as opinion shopping. No major issues discussed prior to our retention, and no difficulties encountered as part of the audit. So again, we did what's known as a single audit. Any government, not-for-profit organization or Indian tribe that expends over $750,000 in federal awards annually is required to have a financial audit. Again, that's kind of a dual-purpose audit involving both financial statements and compliance. So what did the audit report say? This is one slide that references a couple of pages in the audit report. But on page 1, the last paragraph would be our opinion on the financial statements. That would be unmodified. An unmodified opinion is kind of the highest level of assurance that we can provide as independent CPAs. And then on page 65 is our opinion on compliance with the district's major federal award program for 2019. That program was Title I. So just some financial statement analysis on the district's general fund. Generally accepted accounting principles requires that the general fund present a budgetary comparison schedule in the financial statements. Page 22 provides that schedule. For 2019, you had some positive budget variances. On the revenue side, Your actual revenues were about 1.3 million or 3.25% more than final budget. While that's a wide swing, it's certainly going in the right direction. You're fortunate to have that swing versus the opposite direction. Actual expenditures were right on target. They were about 0.32 or $133,000 more than the final budget. So overall for 2019, the budgetary integrity was maintained throughout the year. Just a slide to kind of give you a graphic of what the revenues and expenses and the budget looked like for the year. Again, the kind of dark green lines would be the actual figures. Light green lines would be the budgeted figures. So again, revenues about $1.3 million over budget. Your expenses and other financing sources were about $133,000 more than your budget. So that resulted in a net change in fund balance from a budgeted amount, a budgeted loss of about $100,000 to an actual increase in fund balance of about $1.1 million for 2019. So as far as the general fund balance, obviously for a governmental entity, the biggest benchmark or metric that you would look to for the financial health of a government would be the general fund balance. GFOA, who's the Government Finance Officers Association, they set best practices for local governments. Their recommendation is that local governments maintain 2 months' worth of operating expenditures in general fund balance. That would approximate about $7.2 million would be the benchmark figure that GFOA would recommend. And the district at the end of 2019 is directly in line with that. Your general fund balance was just over $7.2 million at the end of the year. I'll just note that $4 million of the $7.2 is committed, meaning that the school board has approved that commitment for that fund balance to be utilized for specific purposes. In this case, it's PSERS and healthcare increases. So just a chart on the fund balance again. The $2.9 million, the white portion of this graph is the unassigned fund balance. That would be the fund balance that's available for general appropriation. The $4 million would be the committed fund balance, and then the $252,000 would be non-spendable. That would be for inventory and prepaid expenses. So just analyzing the general fund balance versus the benchmark amounts. On the left, we're comparing the benchmark amount of $7.2 million versus your unassigned fund balance of $2.9 million. And then on the right, we're comparing your benchmark amount, $7.2 million, versus your unassigned and committed fund balance. So that would be your entire fund balance minus that prepaid inventory amounts that are on your financial statements. So again, general fund balance, just a history over the last 7 or 8 years here. You can see it's been relatively static over the years. You've had some minor ups and downs. This year, again, you had about a $1.1 million increase from 18 to 19, so you're right in line with what the recommended levels would be. Just some historical information over the last 5 years. Your general fund revenues, as you would expect, fairly static over the last 5 years. You can see that your state revenues have increased incrementally every year. Your local revenues, as you've seen some tax increases over the last 5 years, you see some increases there. And then federal revenues have been relatively flat over the last 5 years.
The state increases, would you just go back again?
Sure.
You mentioned the state is giving us annual increases on a regular basis.
You can see that the state
Talk
revenues...
about the basic subsidy of the $23 million that we get is increasing a little bit every year.
So this number, the red line there, the 23, and I believe it's about 23.5 million in state revenues, that would be all sources of state revenues. So that would be not only your basic ed subsidy, but that would be transportation and retirement. Retirement would be a big driver of why that number has went up over the years with the PSERS rate increases. That state contribution has also went up ratably. So that would be one large driver. Some of the other subsidies may have stayed flat, but that certainly has been one item that's pulled your state revenues up year over year. So general fund expenditures. As you would expect, instructional expenditures are the highest level that you have, and you will see that you did have about $1 million decrease in instructional expenditures from fiscal 18 to fiscal 19. That was primarily salary and benefit related cuts that were made from 18 to 19. All of the other categories were relatively flat. You could see that second highest category, the dark blue bar there, support services, and that would be all the supporting services of the district. All of the remainder of the categories were flat, really, from 2018 to 2019. Long-term debt, over the last 5 years, the district has issued no new debt from 2018 to 2019. This would, and I'll note this will include both general obligation bonds and notes as well as capital leases. No new debt from the prior year, and the district paid down about $3 million in long-term debt from fiscal 18 to fiscal 19. So you went from about $33 million in 2018 to $30 million in 2019. Uniform guidance compliance. The uniform guidance is the guidance that's out there for auditors and local governments to follow with respect to federal award programs. On page 61 is what's known as the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, or your CFA. That would show all of the federal award programs and what the district spent. And in 2019, there was about $1.8 million spent in federal awards. Consistent with 2018, there was no findings related to the district's major federal program. In 2019, that program was Title I that was tested. PSER's retirement contribution rates, this is something that we've showed over the course of the last several years, just to show the ongoing financial strain on school districts of what these PSER's rates have done. This would have been much more shocking 5 years prior to this, when employer contribution rates were in the teens. I think if you would rewind just 5 years, we'd be at 16 or 17%. In 2019, you were at 33%, and your contributions to the PSER's plan were about $5.5 million. Based upon projected increases in that PSER's contribution rate, over the next 5 years, you're expected to pick up approximately $1 million in additional contributions to that plan, so from $5.5 million to $6.5 million. So on the horizon, I'll go through this quickly. There's 2 new accounting standards that will be applicable for the school district the next 2 years. Next year, for June 30th, 2020, fiduciary activities that governs the reporting of kind of agency funds and the private purpose trust funds that are reported in the school district's financial statements. And then for June 30th, 2021, leases that governs the reporting of what had been in the past reported as operating leases or off-balance sheet, kind of just reporting rent expense. Those leases will now be brought on as a right of use asset and a lease liability starting in 2021. So again, just in summary, fund balance is in line with GFOA recommendations. Internal controls are in place, no material weaknesses were noted. Business office has done a solid job on bookkeeping. We had no significant audit adjustments. And that's it. I'm happy to field any questions from the board at this point.
Can you just clarify the deposition, the OPEB on PSERS, that is on the government-wide financial statements and not the governmental financial statements, which our budgeting is based on governmental. Can you just do a brief explanation to the board? Since you did, I agree with you, it's the largest number in our financial statements, but it's a scary number, but day-to-day operations, it doesn't have a huge impact.
Yeah, so the distinction there is the $57 million that I talked about. Governments are required to present what's known as dual-purpose financial statements, meaning that there's full accrual financial statements, which are kind of government-wide, and meaning that they have all of the long-term assets and long-term liabilities recorded. That's where the $57 million would be recorded. It wouldn't be recorded in the district's general fund. What really kind of from a budgetary perspective impacts the district is this slide where you're budgeting for that ongoing contribution into the plan. So no liability in your general fund, but it is something from a long-term perspective. That $57 million is a number it's hard to wrap your brain around, but it's something that goes out, it could go out 60, 70 years. So the district would have a brand new employee, a 21-year-old college graduate that comes on board. What an actuary is going to do is look at not only the working life of that participant, also their retirement and what their mortality would look like. And it's going to go out to the end of that person's life from the time they're 20 years old to the time they're 80 years old. So it's something that's extremely long-term, but nonetheless, something that all school districts are faced with, kind of the burden in Pennsylvania, so.
Is underestimating revenue a common occurrence?
I would say the differences in your revenue for fiscal 19 were, there were some anomalies there. There was things that were more difficult to budget. There was probably the two largest budget variances were number one, PlanCon J reimbursements. That's where the district goes through the PlanCon reimbursement project or process, applies to the state for reimbursement. The largest portion of that was Jersey Shore Elementary, which was approved, and there were some large payments during the year. So that was a driver. I believe that was about $380,000 that was received that wasn't budgeted for. The second portion, the second largest piece, was earned income taxes. So the Williamsport Municipal and School Earned Income Tax Office collects all of the earned income taxes for the Lycoming County area. They remit to the district. That's a difficult process to budget for because it's dynamic, it's always changing. It's hard to look out year over year based upon their collections and the timing of collections and receipts. That amount can change year over year. So those were the two largest variances. There were certainly some other things built in.
If I just understood what you said, the PlanCon J then is a one-time revenue then?
So the payment that was received for Jersey Shore would have been, some portion of it would have been from prior years that was approved in the current year and received in the current year, correct? Ben, I don't know if you know exactly what the impact of Jersey Shore versus kind of what the historically approved programs would have been.
So the uptick in the revenue piece of that was driven from costs from the project that were paid out. It was approximately $1 million paid out of the capital projects fund. There was cash that the district paid to. It's coming. Maybe. I'll get one more. There was approximately $1 million the district paid on that project from its capital projects fund that was identified as cash. When PlanCon J was submitted for the JSE project, that reimbursement, that $380,000 was reimbursement on on that cash portion of it. The district actually owed money back because the reimbursement percentages were decreased from the bond payments that had been reimbursed to the district under its temporary percentage. So we actually paid some money back on those PlanCon debt service reimbursements that we received.
So can we expect PlanCon payment in 2021?
Well, we always budget for the annual recurring money that we receive on our debt services, but we certainly won't budget for a $380,000 payment that we only will get one time.
Well, I mean, on the PlanCon, is there, as far as reimbursement, is there a schedule on an annual basis, what your payments will be till you receive your final payment? Is there such a schedule?
Yeah, you should certainly know what your approved reimbursement rate is, and you know what your debt service payments are going to be, so theoretically, from a budgetary standpoint, you should know with some level of certainty what that payment will be.
Yeah, no, we take that into consideration, budget for that every year.
I have a question on page 19,
Yep.
where you talk about the state funding includes basic education, PCERS, and transportation funding.
Yep.
So really, the basic education funding is what we can use for general education for the students, correct?
Exactly.
Is that separated out somewhere in the larger report?
That is not separated out, no, to the extent that.
Otherwise, it appears that the state's really giving us more than they really are for funding our student programs.
Yeah, that, like I said, that state number is an aggregate number that would include all state revenues. There is no disaggregation, we can certainly get you that information, but the basic ed subsidy was per year. But to the extent it's in our financial statements or in this presentation, it is not segregated out.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Sounds like our fund balance is in pretty good shape. Unassigned and assigned.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly in line with what we would expect for the size of your government, right where we would expect your general fund would be. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Joe before he departs us? Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Outside of those two presentations, you can see the attachments for the vandalism report, so anything to report, and the list of conference attendees and field trips are attachments there as well as the audit. That's it for the superintendent's report.
At this point, we'll go into executive session to review some of the personnel items and legal implications. We will conduct additional business when we come out. Okay, before courtesy of the floor, we have several items on personnel that need to be changed or added. So, the first item is on personnel. We're adding E to hire an additional full-time custodian. F to hire an additional half-time special education teacher. G, proceeding with the termination of employee 2019-20-16. And then H, appointment of Bridget Carmichi to an 8th grade ELA teacher position, step M1, at a current teacher contract, $50,000 prorated for the 2019-20 school year, effective January 3rd, 2020. So asking for a motion to add those items to the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And we'll be doing a roll call on H. In addition, under personnel, oh, I'm sorry. Any other discussion on those for this?
We're just doing the adding those, right?
Just adding,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also on item B under personnel, we'll be opening the varsity boys soccer position and the middle school soccer position for boys due to a resignation that was received today from the coach. And we'll need, because he coaches both the spring middle school as well as the fall high school, we'll need to advertise that position as soon as possible so we're prepared to start the middle school season. For We'll also be pulling the varsity girls soccer coach and opening that position for the 2021 school year. And if we're advertising for the boys coach, we may as well advertise the girls coach as well, so we get that started. Whoever starts in the fall for the varsity position, there'll be some of those middle school girls that will be brought up to play for the varsity coach. So those are the changes, I believe, that we have.
Do we need a motion to accept the resignation or not? No.
No.
Okay.
So the pulling those two items for the boys soccer, girls soccer is just done by consensus, and it's within the purview of the president. Any questions on those two? Okay. Thank you. So, looking for a motion. Okay, courtesy of the floor, I'm sorry. I'm flipping back up. Courtesy of the floor, those two have been added, so if someone wishes to speak on those will be considered as well for anybody that hasn't signed up previously. First item for signatures, Mrs. Beerley, and her agenda topic is the budget.
Ray Beerley, Hyatt Township. I just want to follow up on an email that I sent earlier. If I can get to the right spot.
Is there a budget, is there a agenda item that you're speaking about, Mrs. Beerley?
The auditor's report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. As you're aware, I've been coming for about 2 years and asking questions about the budget projections, the budget deficit, and so on, and I'm happy to see the results from this year's audit. From my email, for the past 2 years, we have heard apocalyptic budget projections presented by the business manager and then discussed at great length by board members. Deficit projections, I might add, that the business manager admits are incomplete. As a result, the board has caused a great deal of fear among the public. Fear about the ability of the district to continue to provide quality education for its children. Fear of additional school closures, employee furloughs, or takeover by the state. Fear of exorbitant additional tax increases that will stress already tight family budgets. While I do not deny that the district faces significant financial challenges, I believe the level of fear created by this board's acceptance of these incomplete deficit projections is unwarranted and perhaps even irresponsible. That is why I have repeatedly asked the board to request a second deficit projection that includes that financial information that to date has been left out. To do so, I believe, would go a long way to reducing much of the public fear and present a more balanced insight into what we can expect going forward. A practice of previous business managers, by the way. I believe it is your duty to do so, but so far you have not. Adrian Craig, the previous business manager, always presented what I refer to as the doomsday scenario, but then she would project using reliable historical data, what she felt was a more reasonable expectation. And the fact that Adrian brought us from a $5,000 fund balance to an over $6 million fund balance, thank you Adrian, wherever you are, is significant and makes me think that her methodology was perhaps more reflective of the reality. So I would only ask that for the remaining time that this board has, and the new board, that they will do more to allay the fears of the members of the public, to be responsive to their questions about the budget and the budget deficit, so that we don't end up like we did this year according to, I don't have the exact number, but I believe a $2.1 million difference in what was projected for a deficit and what was the actual reality of the amount of money that we found that we had that we didn't know we were going to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burley. Next, Mr. Shireman.
Just wanted to say it was just nice to hear a good, clean audit report as it's been for several years. And I would just like to remind the speaker who was just up here, it also wasn't Adrian that helped bring the school district from the brink in 2005 and 2006. It was the school board members of 9, including myself, Mr. Allen, Harry Brungard, Harry Miller, and some others.
If you just wait just a second, Adrian Craig was a big part of that.
Yeah, I know that. I'm set. We were also a big part of it also, that had the courage to stand up and do it all. Adrian's the best there was, and I can even remember the prior speaker here accusing, sometimes chastising Adrian at the time. So I'm glad to hear it was a good report.
Thanks, Mr. Travis. Did anybody in the audience want to speak on the items that were added when we came out from executive session? Okay. We'll move ahead with the agenda. Items A, personnel A through G, as amended for item B. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments or corrections on those items?
Question on A. We're pointing, is there a chart, is there a cost in here, or what, on letter A? I don't understand that.
Is there a salary or anything that goes along with the accompaniment for the high school concert?
Not the one, Mr. King? I don't believe there is. I'm not aware of one.
Okay, so let the record show on that this is at no cost as far as we know of. If we find out after the fact that there is a cost, we'll have to come back and bring it back to the board again. Any other questions on A through G? Hearing none, all in favor of A through G, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item H. Can I have a motion to approve item H?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying there.
You're right.
I thought you were skipping right ahead to H.
No, H under E.
Personnel. Got it.
Which is the appointment of Bridget Carmichi to the 8th grade ELA position, $50,000 annual salary prorated, beginning on January 3rd of 2012. Do we have a motion to approve H?
John?
I did.
John.
You did H?
Roll call.
Okay, then we'll, any questions or comments on H? Hearing none, we'll proceed with roll call, please.
Mr. Brugard,
Yes.
Dr. Pecchio,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
No.
Mrs. Stover,
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer,
No.
Mrs. Thomas,
No.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails because it did not get 5 votes. curriculum instruction, Mr. Valdez. You can make this as long or short as you choose. I know it's a long night.
We're arguing about that.
But at your discretion. I know you need to get home to your two kids. Are you getting text messages? Okay.
I am actually. All right. I was asked to present on curriculum for our Come Alive period at the middle school, which is a new initiative this year, and so I will make this as brief as possible while being thorough and doing justice to the request. We called it a Come Alive period based off of a theme from last year, and so the why behind it is we had this theme that kind of was the narrative for the school year, and we continued it this year because we thought it was fitting, especially for the middle level, encouraging students to find their passions, pursuing them, and finding the connections between what they're learning in the classroom and those things that they're passionate about. Hopefully that will motivate them to continue to be at their best while making the people around them better. So those are things that you hear constantly in the middle school through announcements and common conversations. So based off that why, we had some feedback at the end of last year from students where they would tell us, actually Mr. Armbruster and I were invited into an English language arts class, and students essentially called us out and said, you tell us to come alive and find our passions, but we have no time within our school day to actually do that because it's so full, bell-to-bell instruction. Teachers reported after doing a book study on the innovator's mindset, through the book study they said the book and educational trends and readings share that relationships are key, but we have no time to develop them. Come this spring, I had a number of conversations with our counselor who said we were having an increased number of students reported stress and anxiety, typically students that we wouldn't otherwise see were coming down and reporting these things. So based off all of those things, we came up with a Come Alive period. This was a slide presented to students and staff at the beginning of the year, and I'll just run through those bullets quickly. The goal overall was to strengthen relationships, to grow socially and emotionally, beyond the common curriculum, beyond academics. We also, through Title IV grants, purchased the Second Step program, and so we wanted to implement that, and we wanted to increase digital citizenship, which is part of the comprehensive plan. So during this 30-minute period that happens daily, we wanted to provide intentional space to build relationships, and intentional is bolded there. We wanted to meet the needs of the people, that would include students and staff. We wanted, that would look like going outside, reading a book, discussing relevant current events, things that often didn't have time for in the middle level previously. And we wanted to invest and interact with one another, and I meant no technology. So those were the expectations and goals of the period. One of the big things is social emotional learning. That's, I guess you would call it a buzzword in education now. But Second Step is a platform where that happens. So these are taken from the Second Step program. It's a research-based social emotional learning program. It's research-based again. It's designed based off research to improve students' social and emotional skills. And they're noted there: emotion management, impulse control, problem solving, and empathy. Things that we would consider soft skills, but things that play into their improved academic performance, hopefully reducing negative social behaviors, things that we hear: bullying, cyberbullying, and then creating that positive culture. So that's the program. And it promotes, in the next slide you can see that it promotes those behaviors, the social emotional skills, the pro-social behavior, academic achievement. And in doing that, it prevents some of those things that we were seeing, well, that any middle school, any school sees, the conduct reports, aggressive behavior. But that emotional distress is growing, and this is supposed to, data and research shows that this will reduce that. Beyond that, it has workplace skills that come down to those soft skills that we often hear about, and that workforce readiness skills, things that we've been talking about with career and future ready, PA future ready, things that we've shared in the past. But all of these things are done through the Second Step program. So the Second Step program happens in the middle school at a minimum of every other Thursday during our Come Alive period. I say a minimum because we're requiring that many lessons, but there's many more that teachers can choose from, and some teachers are doing that as they see the need. So there's a large repertoire of lessons that they can choose from in that program. During the Come Alive period is also when we address school safety, so we just dedicated over a week to during that period to teach our students about what ALICE looks like, other safety procedures in the middle school, so that happens during that 30-minute period as well. This next one is a class-wide initiative, and this video is very quick, but you often see students outside. I know some board members have asked, why are there more students outside at the middle school? The community members have asked, and it's during this Come Alive period. So can you click on that video? Promise it's quick.
Make sure your paper's flat, Connor, because it looks like scissors. Yeah, so that's it. No, that's not it was scissors. He got burned. No, I did this because I broke my middle finger. Ah. He didn't break his finger. Flat hand. No. Oh, go green.
So there's a whole... So as an example of a team building activity that an 8th grade class implemented, and it's rock, paper, and scissors, and they try to get back and forth. But it got them outside, building relationships. You can hear them just talking about someone broke their middle finger, so they can't make a flat paper. I think it's an excuse. But ultimately, I just walked out and I was like, what on earth are they doing? But kids were loving it. They're interacting with another. It's a de-stressor. Often students reported when they talked about stress, there was no time in the day for them to decompress. A middle school cafeteria is not always a relaxing environment, and so this provides an opportunity for them to do that. The picture on the right is one of the class-wide initiatives that student chose to do. 8th grade ELA walked over to JSASD for 2 weeks and read to 3rd grade students. So they walked across the street, read to 3rd grade students during that 30-minute. That was a choice that some of the 8th grade students chose to do. Students' choice as well. Sometimes they sit in a room and they'll have a quiet time, they're walking, there's kickball as an activity. Usually that happens on a rotation basis, so they're not doing it all year. There's times where the kids go in and color. Teachers have talked about the discussions and relationships that have built based around adult coloring books. Board games, reading, basketball, again, non-technology. So it is a relaxed time in the day where they're building relationships. Passion projects is listed there, and this is my final 2 slides. Passion projects is something we're pushing as well. It's actually been in the newspaper a couple times. It doesn't necessarily have to happen during Come Alive, but it's a time in the day where students can pursue these passions. Braden Seaschultz, at the beginning of the year, first week of school, came to me and said, I want to do a passion project. I created a proposal he could complete, so we knew where he was securing money, because he raised $2,585 for the American Federation for Suicide Prevention. Majority of that was through coins, which were very heavy. And the Tomorrow Needs You Because was an initiative that we did during the Come Alive. We did an awareness for suicide prevention, and then students and staff responded to that prompt, Tomorrow Needs You Because, and they listed the reason. The bigger words were the ones that were responded to more frequently by those that completed it, which was almost 600 people. So that's a wordle, I guess, demonstrating that. So this is an opportunity for students to pursue those passions. Braden took advantage. Another student took advantage, Kennedy Williams. She approached the Military Support Club that she's a part of, and she wanted to bring back the Veterans Day Assembly. So she planned it, connected, put the plans out to other students. All those stars were completed, put on the walls, written for someone who has served in people's families or friends, and then veterans and current active servicemen and women came into the building and we honored them. Kennedy's push was to also bring awareness to the families that are at home while others are serving, and the sacrifices the family makes as well. So there's another passion project. I think it was a great success, and some of that was done during the Come Alive period. So some new things happening in the middle school, and that's it. Any questions?
You said this is a half-hour day. Is it done by different groups at different times, or you all have it at the same time?
Good question. Grade level. So
okay.
it's either majority, both. Two of them are after lunch, so they come back from lunch, or the other way around, before lunch, and then one is after. So it revolves around the lunch schedule.
Thank you.
Who leads who's in charge?
That's a good question.
Do the teachers do this, or?
We like to push more of it to the students, and that's what we're trying to do, is have students choose what activities. So a team often will have various options. So if I'm on 8 orange, I might have 5 or 6 options that I can choose from, and what actually that team does it off of 2 weeks. So they'll pick an option, they'll do it for 2 weeks, and then the next 2 weeks they'll have another option, and they stick with that. So it might be an outdoor team building activity, it might be coloring, and then they can choose every 2 weeks.
Do they all return to their class, to their homeroom, and it just happens in the homeroom?
Yeah, that's where they would initially report to. But once they have it scheduled, once the schedule is made, if I'm the students that walked across to JSC, they were always in a teacher's room. So during Come Alive period, they report to that teacher. They walk to JSC, they return to that room, and then went to the next period afterward.
Are you taking away instructional time, half hour of instructional time that's required?
Yeah, so there's always a cut, there's always a cost, and so we did reduce, last year our schedule, it's a pretty loaded question, last year our schedule was very unique per grade level, and this blocked time of 30 minutes allowed our building to operate on a more complete, consistent schedule, and so it was a byproduct of, it's actually a positive byproduct of having to reduce times anyway, to have better scheduling for our special ed and other exceptional students.
You're required to have 5.5 hours of instruction a day, is that correct? 900 and some hours.
That's more of a high school. The minute breaks down more at the high school level for minutes and different programming at the high school. We are still well within our time frame at the middle level.
Okay, thank you. The students like this.
They do. I've seen some parents in the community, and they've often said, "What's this Come Alive thing you're doing?" That's all my kids talk about when they come home. Our hope is that we continue to see the rise in academics that we presented on a few weeks ago.
This is your first, I can't remember, this is your first year doing this, or you can?
First year doing this 30-minute block, correct.
Sounds like a good idea.
We'll find out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. He tells me nothing.
Building and grounds, just a quick update on the scoreboard and the high school pool renovation.
So the scoreboard was installed early part of last week. I understand, I know that it's pre-printed, it came pre-printed with what appears to be the needs of a football scoreboard. But as I presented, when we talked about this idea, please remember there's placards that slide down in channels over top of that wording so that the scoreboard can be used for both a soccer competition and a track competition. But the blank panel as it came pre-printed as a football scoreboard. We will not put the placards in there until next spring, just because there's no reason to expose those placards to weather if it's not needed. The sound system for the scoreboard will be installed in late February, early March, before the spring season starts. I had a conversation with the company last week. At the same time, he'll be providing Mrs. Henry the training needed for that. One of the reasons for the delay in the sound system is because sound system comes with a 1-year warranty, and he said no reason to start the clock on it in December, and you're not gonna use it. He's gonna wait until we get closer to when we need it in the springtime. So 2 seasons with that sound system. If we have any issues, we will be covered under warranty.
What about the timer?
There have been no plans on a full automatic timing system.
So this won't work for the track and field?
Well, it will coordinate some aspects of a track meet. However, the school district does not own a FAT system, but it's built that it can correspond with an FAT system if the district would so choose to purchase one.
Ben, did I hear you say the sound system was in conjunction with the scoreboard, or are there 2 separate things?
It needs to be installed. It was purchased as part of the purchase
Oh.
price of the scoreboard, but it still needs to be installed.
Thank you.
So are you gonna go after the timer? You gonna pursue that?
Personally, yes, I have a dream and a goal that this district at some point in time in my residency would require a full automatic timing system. Just from my past experience in track competitions, it is a personal goal of mine to get there. We just gotta walk before we run. Maybe I got that backwards. In regards to the high school pool, the pool has been cut, the floor has been cut, the fully excavated. So far, no problems there. The drains have been delivered, and the piping has been delivered. We have been seeing more consistent workforce on a more consistent basis. I know this afternoon, Mr. Wall emailed me, we're starting to discuss some colors of tiles. There's a slightly different shade of blue for the lane lines than what's currently installed there, so he and I will be discussing that tomorrow. And I will be discussing that with the contractor tomorrow as well prior to going into the break. But we're moving along. We're hopeful that we are still on time with the time frame that we have of December 31st.
So what's the substantial completion date?
December 31st.
You think you're gonna make that?
Yes.
Okay. I have to go back to this track scoreboard. The track team will not use this new scoreboard, is that right? This will be used by the soccer.
Well, the track team certainly can use it. I mean, they could keep even the meet score on the scoreboard if they would choose to. I don't know. There's a component, I believe, when I talked to the gentleman yesterday about the timer.
Right.
You can start the timer. It won't be the most accurate thing, so you probably won't be using it for the 100-meter sprint for the 110s, but I'm sure you might think about using it for a mile or even a 400-meter, just to start the timer. But it is usable. It just won't. We do not have a FAT system, which is a full automatic timing system right now in the district.
Is there a PA system part of this, or is PA system separate?
There's a sound system that needs to be installed in late February, early March.
And the track people will be able to use that?
Yes.
Okay. How much water does the pool hold? How many gallons?
Mark?
199,000.
999,000?
100.
100.
Oh, 100. And how long does it take to fill it?
Well, we're gonna find out.
Can I follow up on that question, please?
Go ahead.
Is that city water, and if it is city water, do you pay sewage rates on that also?
No, not, when we start filling it, I'll contact the water company.
You contract for just the water that,
I already have that worked out with them for a price.
no, I was just curious, I was thinking about that before, because every time you use city water, you pay sewage rates on the consumption, okay.
Is the swimming team practicing now?
Yes,
Where?
Williamsport.
Williamsport.
Okay, that was just a quick update on the pool and the scoreboard. Moving on to finance. We have a resolution to stay within the Ackland Index. Administration to conduct business and appropriate district invoices at the next available board meeting, and accepting finance statements, supplementary information from Baker Tilly. You have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, concerns, or corrections?
If we don't have a tax increase, would we need to process this resolution?
This resolution simply allows, or dictates to the state that you, or PD, that you won't raise taxes above the index. So it does not require you to raise taxes, it just limits what you can raise them to, if you so choose.
I understand. I just said, what by some miracle, we decide we won't have to raise taxes this year? Would we need the resolution?
You would need to do something, so you have one of two options. You either would pass the resolution, or you would go through the preliminary budget process of having that approved, voting on it. That all would take place in late January, early February.
So you'd have to go right to the preliminary budget process.
Yeah, so we would start that immediately.
Well, is this a possibility that we will not have to raise taxes, especially with the additional revenue that we picked up through the auditors?
Well, as you recall, the last meeting when I gave you the preliminary budget had those revenue pieces that the auditor pointed out set at the 18-19 amount that we collected, and we had a $600,000 deficit. As we go through this process, is there a possibility that we could have a balanced budget? At this point in time, I would say yes, there's a possibility, but I won't give you a percentage of what that possibility actually is. I think there's a possibility.
In your 11/11 financial, long-range financial outlook, as you were preparing for the 2021 budget, you had a deficit of $604,000, and that was primarily because you reached the benefit area by about $700,000, I think. Maybe that's a little bit high, but we're looking at a deficit. We're not starting out at $1 million deficit this year, or next year. We're looking at a $600,000 deficit. So that's why I'm saying maybe there's some extra revenue somewhere here, and we might come up with a balanced budget on $600,000, and we won't have to raise taxes. I think you're planning to raise taxes, what, $350,000? Don't you have? Isn't it in your long-range plan?
Yes.
Rather than going to 471 to the max, you're planning on $350,000 tax increase. Is that? And I have that right?
That is correct.
So there is a possibility that we might not have to raise taxes, perhaps. Or am I being unrealistic?
Well, I agree with you that it's a perhaps.
That would be awesome news for the taxpayers. We've raised taxes now going all the way back, what, to 2005 and coming forward. I think every year we've raised taxes a little bit, not above the index, but we've raised taxes.
Any other questions?
No.
If no other questions, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'm sorry?
to miscellaneous, items A through L. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any questions on A through L? Of miscellaneous?
Item A, what, clarify what that is. That S2 SS,
That's the Safe to Say Something program through the Office of Attorney General. It's the tip line that went into effect last January.
applies to the high school principal and the middle school principal.
Actually, every district has to have a 5-member team that gets called and sent the tips that are put in. That was your 5-member team since last January.
Okay.
You can see there's an Kyle Farah is the SRO, and then there's an elementary principal, middle school principal, and high school principal, and myself.
Okay, thank you.
Point of clarification, can I vote no on one item, or do I have to vote no on the whole thing?
And which one, Mary?
Can I vote no on one item, or do I have to vote no on the whole thing?
Well, we can pull that item and still do a voice vote on that item if you like.
I'd like to pull off that.
Yeah.
Which item?
F.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on those items? Okay, for A through E and G through L, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And then we'll vote on F separately, which is the policy 702 for student staff memorials and honorariums at second reading. Any discussion on that item? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
May I have a question?
Sure.
Why is it being pulled? Do you have a problem with it?
I personally do, it's just a personal thing, so.
Would you care to discuss it? I mean, I kind of thought it was okay. I mean, I didn't really look at that thoroughly. Maybe you probably did. Do not want to discuss it?
Not publicly, it's a safety issue.
Okay.
If it's a safety issue, is it appropriate for executive session?
You want to discuss it there, but I don't think we need one. It's gonna pass.
Okay.
I'm just making
I
fun of it.
just wanted to offer the opportunity just in case. Okay, so move forward with item F. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Old business, we asked Mr. Enders to go over a corrected set of financials that were handed out at the last meeting, or with some small revisions.
Do we have a handout?
It was in the November 15th weekly update.
Okay.
Yeah, you just review it, please.
So I was requested after the last board meeting to provide the board in my update the financial statements that I provided you at the last meeting in regards to the vote on the 6 options that was presented on the agenda. I provided you that update with the savings from closure of both schools. 2021, the savings projected was $554,257.47. That was the removal of the current budgeted replacement secretary at JSASD, another secretary position, 2 aides, 3 custodians, an assistant principal, included furlough for those employees, the operating cost of the 2 outlying buildings, the warranty extension that's in the current 2021 budget for Avis Elementary, and netted of the cost to close and consolidate the buildings and cost to operate the buildings until sold. Going forward in 21-22, the savings increased to $1,028,542.64. This analysis assumes that we would garner by then 3 retirements of the teaching staff, which we could eliminate the positions with retirements. Those numbers have been provided, and those are the 3 most senior teachers, the elementary teachers that the district currently has. The furlough, the unemployment on the furloughs has been removed, as that is only a 1-year cost. So it has the costs for the warranty, and so has the cost to close and consolidate. 22-23, the savings is the same for those people in those positions. The cost is the savings is $1,056,175. And 23-24, again, same positions. Cost is the savings is $1,086,308. This analysis also assumes that the district would continue to own the buildings and operate the buildings being vacant for all 4 of those years, because we have budgeted $50,000 for all 4 years to continue with the utilities there.
So, for questions, just a clarification for the 19, I guess it would be for the 2021, it was a savings of 554, and that's because we had to retain 3 personnel, correct? Basically.
If the retirements would happen in 2021, the positions could be eliminated if they would occur. This analysis does not assume the furlough of any of the teaching staff. It assumes that the positions would be eliminated through attrition.
And then 21-22, it jumps up to 1.1 million, basically.
Basically 1 million.
And then 22-23 would have jumped up to 1.5 million.
1.05, 1 million.
Oh, 1.05?
Yes.
I thought you said
1,056,000.
56, okay. Apologize. That's a big difference. There's your money that we could have saved.
It's a projection, not action. Projection. Ben's projection.
Any other questions on these numbers? I just wanted to come up with corrected projections. Questions, comments? Okay. We'll open it up to the second courtesy of the floor. This is for whatever you want to discuss.
Ray Bearley Pike Township. I find it interesting that in our updated projections of savings on school closing, we're including possible attritional savings due to retirements, which I advocate because people do retire. But my question is, will we also amend the deficit projections going forward by including those same attritional savings? Because it's my understanding that we do not include attritional savings in our budget projections, so it certainly doesn't seem like that they can be counted as savings when it supports school closing, but we can't include it when it produces deficit numbers that don't support school savings. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nancy Petrowski, Watson Township. Do you have any idea how you are going to try to fill the Region 3 position?
We'll probably advertise for open applications for be the first effort.
And then just have a special meeting before the 11th?
We'll just keep trying to fill it until it happens.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
That might be your choice.
Yeah, I don't know. Thanks.
Craig, after 30 days, doesn't something different happen?
Not automatically. It can go to the courts, but it doesn't have to go to the courts.
Thanks.
Is that correct?
Correct.
What would suffice it to go to the courts? What forces that?
We could petition.
We do it, or
we could do it.
Either yourselves or a taxpayer within the district to do the same.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of public comment then. We'll be going into executive session for additional personnel and legal, I believe, for, it may become effective at our next meeting. So we will not conduct any additional business after we come back out.